I would generously describe myself as someone who is proficient with stick figures in terms of my design capabilities. And so I'm just curious for others who may be in that same particular boat, what are some things that they could try or do to really start leveling up their emails and be impressive in that particular channel?
People always ask us what makes a really good email, like how do you pick what goes on the site. Here are some points to think about your campaigns and also testing opportunities. So the first one is just overall structure of the email. I think a lot of brands struggle with laying things out. When you create a good structure of an email, it allows people to know what's important, what they should do next, what they should click. So I think thinking about that layout and it making sense really helps people understand and use your email a lot better. Images, GIFs, and video. A lot of people used to really struggle with really blurry images, low quality. We talked about AI today, and I think one of the cool things with AI is AI upresing. So you can have a poor quality image like UGC from a customer or something, run it through AI, and now it's a high quality image and you can edit it a little bit more, include it in an email. I really think seeing a blurry image or seeing a poor quality GIF in an email is really distracting from the user. It brings them out from that message. A lot of brands still include imagery that doesn't really match their headline or doesn't really match the content of the rest of the email. They're just throwing in a stock photography just because they want to fill something in the top. But I really think when an image actually backs up the rest of the email and helps clarify the overall message, if it comes from an image or iconography, supporting that overall message can really help people understand your email, not just including something because you have to. I think typography is another big thing. One thing, I think it's just about making it easy to read, making sure it stands out. I think a lot of brands can do really cool, bold stuff with typography in the first parts of the email to really capture people's attention, but the rest of the email should really be easy to read, so not using like a crazy font throughout your entire email. You can do that in one spot, but not the whole thing. Website consistency, this was something that we didn't see as much anymore, but brands struggled with having an email look totally different than their website, and I think that is a little jarring to users when they're interacting with an email, they click something and the website button looks totally different. They don't feel like that's a continuous interaction. And then lastly, I think contrast is a big one that we always talk about. So this kind of goes in that email accessibility thing. So if you have a white font on a light blue background or a yellow background, it's going to be hard to read, and really thinking about that audience and making sure that something like contrast is there. Like we have a lot of accessibility features within web design, and trying to actually make a lot more of those available within email I think is really important, is what we're pushing for. So here's another little checklist that we talk about a lot with email. This is what I like to actually ask before I hit send on an email. The email should serve the customer more than the company. So say you have a product release email, instead of just telling someone, okay, here's the product points, really make it about them. How does it make my life better? How does this new feature set actually help me do my job faster or something? I think that really focuses the email more about them and the problem that they're trying to solve, and not just about you telling them that you did something. And I think one thing as well is just surprising and delighting in the inbox. If someone forwards your email to someone because it looks cool or it has a cool message, that's a really cool brand opportunity. And I think we should aspire to actually do that with our emails, not just talk about ourselves, talk about promotions. So I think the surprise and delighted inbox when a brand can make you really feel special is what we're going after. And then lastly, we talked about accessibility, live text and images. Accessibility is even beyond just something like an alt text. It's really thinking about mobile, desktop, image size, weight. Things like that help your email be where someone actually wants to see it and actually let them interact with it a lot easier. It just shows that you have a responsibility towards that audience. Really good emails, we have this little game called Design Golf. So every time that something changes in your email, it's a new point. So say you have a brand font and then a color change. Each of those sections that you're featuring is a context switch, and too much context switches, it really can make the person feel alienated. They don't really know how to use your email. It can make it a little bit confusing. So we're trying to keep a low score and make things a little bit easier for them.
Yeah, because isn't it 7 seconds now is the average that people will spend looking at an email?
Scannability is a big thing within email. Trying to actually make that a lot easier, and having too much different things that may be distracting. A good designer will put everything in an email. I think a great one really tells you what you should take away from an email.
So it's about exercising that editorial control too.
Exactly. Design and the content side.
Those are some really key, easy wins, but there's a lot of things that you want to get right at the foundational level. Can you talk about some of those? What's most important to focus in on?
So things that you want to get right. What problem is the email actually solving? What is the purpose of the email? Trying to have some intention behind that email and not just because you have something to say. Let's actually try to solve a problem that our customer is having. Talking about overwhelming your audience, let's actually try to have content that's relevant to them, not giving them too many options, making it clear what the next step is. With email, I always think that you're always guaranteed one click in an email. So you have to decide what that main CTA, what that one action you want them to do. If you're giving them 10 different things to click on, at the end of the day, you're really distracting that message and it becomes less clear about what they should do next. The big thing here is just knowing your customers. You can do really cool surveys, interviews, questionnaires just about how your customers are using your emails. One of the coolest things I think is like sending someone a $50 Amazon gift card and being like, let me show you this email design. What would you do next? How would you use this email? Is this relevant to you? One thing that we did with Really Good Emails is we surveyed our customers, what day would you like to receive this newsletter? I think taking the time to talk to different stakeholders or different types of customers, you might discover a lot of new insights by actually talking to those people. Lastly, I guess just segmentation is this invisible email design, avoiding now just this one-size-fits-all approach. People talk about email as having a lot of limitations, and I think one of the best ways that it stands out from other channels is the ability to segment and actually create a one-to-one message. The day of spray and pray, the one single message that applies to everyone is really leaving money on the table when it comes to opportunities. So I just recently did an interview with Going. You might know them as Scott's Sheep's Flights, but they just transitioned through to this new Going brand. They did that with email, really learning about their audience, knowing they would alienate some customers, that they're switching to this new brand. These emails are so smart to me. They really are customer focused. They're an extension of their product. Like this first one, the Welcome series, it's bringing dynamic content about where my home airport is. It's showing me at the top how many more touches are in this onboarding series. So things like that, it just shows an understanding of your audience and understanding of what goes into an email, only including the information that's the most important, and doing that with great design as well.
Okay, so you just were talking about personalization, and one of the things that I really appreciate about your work and how you think about things is this whole humanizing design and really empathizing and considering the person on the other end of the email. But we've been talking a lot about AI today, of course, too, and so I'm just curious, in terms of AI and the artificial intelligence aspect, what role can AI play in humanizing design?
I think AI can do a lot of stuff, but to me, I think of email as building a relationship with your customer. When it comes to humanization and talking to someone like your friend or something, you don't want you to start adopting AI and then people don't even recognize you. You may have changed a little bit too much. Just treating AI as a tool or a companion that helps you make your emails campaigns but doesn't replace your brand voice, doesn't replace that human element. So I think other than the generative side of AI, I think it can actually do a lot more about talking like how your emails look. What does AI think about your email design? Does it think it sucks? Putting in those prompts and talking about the welcome series and how can I make this better out of these 5 emails, which one doesn't provide enough value? I think it can really have some interesting opinions about overall design outside of that. I think AI is a great way to actually refine your copy, maybe talking about what points in this email distract the user from this message. How can I make this more human? Things like that. Just keeping that genuine tone throughout your email, it should really help and not actually replace you. Specifically for B2B, a lot of people always have questions about B2B and how can they innovate in the inbox. And I think it really is about adding humor and engagement, trying to keep that human element. It doesn't have to be boring. You can show people's faces. You can talk about people's business problems. I think there's a lot of cool ways so you don't sound like a robot.
That's awesome.
So here's a quick warning. We don't want everything to look the same. If everyone's doing the same type of prompts, getting the same sort of outputs, that really can be the scary future where everything just looks the same and it makes your brand not stand out from other brands. You should really focus on those outcomes, not those vanity metrics that we're all looking at. Really thinking about, is AI actually making me more sales versus my human element that I'm testing? The clicks alone don't drive revenue. I just wanted to highlight a piece of content that's really hyper-focused to an individual company. So this is off-court provided, personalized kind of win-back email, abandoned cart email that's around Black Friday and includes some referral stuff. So just something that's like really specific to this company that AI may not actually help with. So I think there are solid ideas around AI and how the flows can be set up, but there are still opportunities for you to create something personalized that actually is relevant to your customers.
So to keep going along this AI theme, I think this is especially an important question in Los Angeles or pertinent here because there's a lot of conversation about AI's role in creative work, which of course email is a creative channel. So where and how do you think it makes sense to bring it into email design? And do you see a future or even a present where AI is making email?
Yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities more than just the content marketing piece. So thinking of better ways to do that personalization with AI, Like content optimization, more automated testing, getting to market faster allows you to do other things instead. So I see a lot of brands being like, oh, we don't want AI, it's going to impact our jobs, but hopefully AI can help you speed up some of the stuff that you don't like to do so you can spend more time on the creative aspects of your job that you like. Attribution ROI, that's another thing. I think it's really cool to me that there is like a design assistant or a buddy that can always cover your blind spots when it comes to email design. Maybe you're in your silo making this stuff and you don't really realize, or there's not a person you can bump up that email design to, and now having someone before you go to your boss say like, look at this email image. What do you think about this email? What are some parts that I could maybe improve? It's just another set of eyes that can be really beneficial. And then here's some other personalization ideas that I just wanted to highlight. So here's top 3 that we saw trending from our search data in 2024. So I think Milestone is the biggest one here. Just talking about people adding some gamification, maybe like how we saw in the previous examples. How can you make someone feel like they're being seen based on past purchases or their interactions? And reaching these sort of milestones is another type of communication that may be helpful for them. And then I think wish list is really cool if you have that built into your site to provide some communication around that. So we asked ChatGPT to roast our email, and we got an 88 out of 100, and it ain't half bad. Here's some points that what we stood out, and then it also helped us with some opportunities to actually make our email a little bit better. So this email is a little bit longer. It has a lot of different sections. In our redesign, we may include some of these as opportunities to change.
If some of us wanted to do that ourselves, would we put the HTML in? What did you actually pop into?
I think I did both. I think I did an image and HTML being like, let me know about this email. I think the prompt was just as simple as score this email out of 100 and tell me why or something.
So basically it told you how to get those extra 12 points.
Exactly. It's one of those things, this is just AI's opinion. Should you listen to everything that it says?
Have you tried that yet?
Not yet. And here's a really cool little form that I use when we do our interview series, Feedback Friday. Basically, let me get some information about this email that I can talk throughout the interview. It's just an empty form, and I just pasted it in ChatGPT and said, complete this form, and it spit out this, letting me know a little bit about this email. And to me, it's pretty cool to actually have some of this information. It can definitely save you time when you're filling out those kickoff documents potentially.
Can you tell if any emails by an AI have been submitted to really good emails?
I think AI is invisible at this point, but it's interesting to see like over time what AI's role will be and how it may change email design in general. So here's some just cool ideas to me where I think about AI helping you design your email a little bit better. What would AI actually suggest? What data would I maybe need to make this email even better when it comes to personalization? And on the be-free email side, I think, how is this no-code future of email? How does AI play a role into that? Could you just give AI your URL to your website and it builds you a whole onboarding flow based on that? I think there's some really cool stuff that AI could potentially do, and we saw some today. We're just at the very beginning of what AI's role in email is, I think.
Yeah, and it's fun getting to play with those tools as well.
Yeah, and I want to share this really cool art project called Spells, which is basically someone showing you the prompt and the output when it comes to generative AI, like the art aspect of it. But I hope something like that exists for marketers, sharing prompts, learning how to make things a little bit better. Sharing that with our peers and talking about how AI is helping us is a cool future to be in.
What things do you really dislike seeing in email?
Most emails are actually really bad. Some things I hate about everyone's emails is misleading copy. I think it does not really make sense to me to mislead your users, maybe for a quick win or a little bump in engagement, but again, it's like lying to your significant other in a relationship. It doesn't usually work out that great long term. One-image emails, I really dislike that in 2024. Makes things a lot easier to change out in the future, dynamic content. People are not going to be able to read it. And then people talk about, oh, we're just going to design something in Figma and export it, slice and dice it into an email, and it's going to work great. But even something like translations, if your email isn't in live text, you can't translate that to another language. It might actually impact accessibility in that way. Generic stock photos, unless they're ironically used, which is cool and fun, but a lot of times we see body copy and it doesn't relate at all to that stock photo. It's like you added all these extra pixels and it doesn't actually back up the message of that hero copy that you want to talk about. So I think there's a lot of generative AI, or just also taking the time and effort to make your photography a lot better, can really help out in the email. I really don't like top navigation bars anymore.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
I was into them for a while, and then, I just can't handle them now.
I've seen a lot of brands actually put it on the bottom, and it is like a shoppable link. And I think when people scroll down to an email, it's very easy for them to actually click those rather than trying to go to the top. So I'd rather not distract from that main message at the top of the email and instead put it at the bottom.
Yeah. I like knowing it's there so that I can get to it if I need certain things there.
Exactly. Email carousels, let's keep them at the carnival. I think it's hard to track the ROI. There's some cool examples of carousels, but I don't think they belong in email all the time. I like a very simple layout when it comes to email. Expecting someone to click through your little carousel and click on every single thing is not really going to happen. Too many fonts and colors. When you're including everything, it gets really hard to stay focused. And we talk about best practices and trends in email, but you do want to actually choose ones that might be relevant to your brand. I don't think it makes sense for you to always just chase the next hot thing. Actually think about your brand and how it can apply. But yeah, don't put everything in there just because you read some blog post about it. So.
All of these really are more on kind of the design end of things. What are some other areas that people should think about when they're building emails?
Some high-level points is copywriting, personalization, segmentation, and optimizing your content. I think there's opportunity for dynamic content and personalization outside of just first name. I really do think email should be one-to-one nowadays, and I think there's a lot of opportunities to make that happen. And I think the invisible level of email design is a lot of the time segmentation. And I don't think that one message to everyone it makes sense anymore. Even like an onboarding flow, if you know a little bit more about your customer, that might look a lot different depending on who they are rather than just let's serve everyone the same type of email. I think each of those really, you can go back to your team and say, let's focus on some of these ones, make our emails even better.
In terms of other ways that people can develop their email sensibility and continue not putting things in your inbox that give you hives, tell me some options.
Looking at web design in general, I think there's a lot of cool trends that we're seeing actually come to email, especially with like in the DTC world. I think a lot of brands do a fantastic job. A lot of agencies out there making cool looking emails that don't fit the normal overall trend within email. I think social media trends performs well on social media. You can also maybe relate to email. Signing up for your competitor emails is a great way. Coming to events like these are awesome. And then just learning some overall design basics can really help you communicate to your design team or your developer what you want to change, what you don't like about an email. Speaking that same language can help a lot with the overall messaging.
I feel like I remember hearing there's a fair number of retail folks in the audience or just some people who might be concerned about the holidays.
Have you heard of Black Friday before?
Oh, no, is that coming up again?
I've heard it's coming.
Oh my gosh.
They're doing it again this year.
And doesn't it get longer every year? Because I used to work in I used to work in retail and I was just, is it already starting and it's May? So what are some things that might be helpful for folks that are going through that?
It's a crazy time right now. Hopefully everyone is maybe closer to finishing up their Black Friday plans, but to me some interesting Black Friday stuff that we've been thinking about is how to actually do promotions without discounts this holiday season. How do you add value to these emails without just discounting a product? I heard an analogy that has been sticking with me is Black Friday is like going to a bowling alley with your coworkers. You're allowed to be a little weird and crazy, but you don't want to be like that all the time. You can do some fun stuff for Black Friday that's outside of your brand when it comes to design and the offers that you do, stuff that you can't do all the time at work. But yeah, just thinking about how to do that and maybe stand out a little bit more in that inbox and make the value that you add a little bit more memorable. There's lots of ways, especially with VIP access and different things like that, bundling that can make your customers feel appreciated or they're looking forward to your deal or Cyber Month or whatever, outside just like a 20% discount that everyone's doing that day.
And sometimes it's about repackaging it in the right way too and making it clear, no, this is for you. It is.
Exactly. I've heard a lot about the impact of the election kind of going into the holiday season. So we have yet to see like a ton of information about that, but just trying to keep your plans fluid when it comes to some of that stuff and the expectations of the inbox when you might be competing with a lot of different messages.
Yeah, I think fluidity is the name of the game. I think having some backup plans and things you can move around if you need to is a good idea.
Here's some other value add ideas that I thought would be cool to include. Looking at our search data, the top 3 highlighted ones are the most popular. Buy one, get one is a big one on how people sort of position. I think reminding people about free shipping. You can do some cool stuff too with abandoned cart emails. If they have to reach a certain amount of money to get to free shipping, only show that free shipping messaging to people that actually have a cart that large. Gift with purchase is definitely becoming like a bigger thing to include in the holiday season that may get people to check out. Here's a cool one from Vimeo that actually brings in some of that free gift with purchase. So just a way to get people to actually make a purchase decision outside of just a discount or something.
I also like the blue on the yellow. That pops really nicely.
I like that too.
Christina's giving me the face. So if anybody wants to ask a question, we've got a microphone ready to go.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about any best practices around subject lines, just because I really liked what you said about standing out in the inbox and just speaking as an end consumer. It'll take me all day to get through my primary inbox, let alone promotions and socials. Are there any best practices or any subject line trends that have high AI scores that you could speak to, just to get, since that's the first point that anyone's going to see, like how something stands out before they get to the actual content?
Short and concise is becoming like a trend that we're seeing a lot more. I think people appreciate getting directly to the message now. It's just not trying to mislead someone with a subject line. If you can say, I want to win $10,000 and you open and there's not $10,000 in there. So to me, that's one of the biggest things, is actually having that copy and deliver what the promise is. So like teasing a little bit of that content and then delivering it with the email message is the best way. And now with the latest iOS, they're summarizing emails. So some of that pre-header text is maybe not as relevant anymore. So just thinking about how some of that stuff may impact your end send and how to still provide value. But again, if you're building a relationship with these customers, hopefully they're actually looking forward to your next email and want to open it.
I would also say, to Matt's point about short and sweet, make sure you're actually sending yourself and looking at it on a phone to see, because I know my phone cuts off a good part of a subject line, and that's, you want to see if the meat is getting across the finish line or if it's just the potatoes.
Also A/B test.
Yeah,
you can still try to do that. Even if some of the privacy stuff is impacting open rates, I think there's still ways to look at clicks and things like that that still may drive how you pick a winner of a campaign.
And depending on how in-depth you want to go to, I know when I was working in B2C, we actually had competitors in just a general sense of what was going on in inboxes. We signed up for everything we could. So literally the morning, we'd have send time optimization and a few things going, but we'd get a picture of what things were trending even that day and just switch it up based on what was going on. But that depends how deep you want to go.
Hey, I have a question around misleading copy. I'm not sure who started this, but something I've been seeing more and more is subject lines that start with "re," which
I hate that.
Hate that, because it seems like it's an email thread that you've replied to before. Also against Iterable's acceptable use policy. But I'm curious what recommendations you would give to people, because I can see why folks would want to use that. I'm sure it does increase email opens and engagement. Would love to be able to advise people to do something else.
I feel like the easy response to that is, sure, it increases your opens, but what do the other stats do? Because I feel like if you open an email thinking it's one thing and then it's not that thing you thought it was, you're not buying the product. And so I think that's something, like if you're experimenting with something like that, to look at all of the metrics, see what your click is, see what your conversion rate is, and just follow along to make sure that it's actually doing what you want it to do and not just bumping up the open rates to make you look good.
Yeah, this is my weird email conspiracy of faking a mistake and then sending a fake email to fix the mistake. People will open it and click on it, but it's about building that long-term relationship. So if you only care about the click, I'm down for you to try whatever to do that. But I think it's more for some brands just building that relationship over time and thinking about repeat customers, customer loyalty. So if you only care about that one click and that one sale, go for it, do whatever it takes. But that's not usually what we see long-term working for brands.
What you said, 7 seconds or less where people scroll through an email, and the need to incorporate a genuine tone, whether that's humor or on brand or something. Which part of the email should this genuine tone be focused on? I know it should be woven in throughout, but we're all time-strapped, right? So is there a subject line or somewhere in the email where we should be dropping in our authenticity?
I think it does start with the subject line. There's also the aspect that you're not just sending one email typically to somebody, you're sending often multiple. So it is a chance to build that relationship and get them used to the tone, like squatty potty. You know what to expect now. And so there's that aspect of knowing, even when you see that sender ID in the inbox, that, okay, I have a sense of what to expect. But I think it starts with the subject line and goes with that consistency through the email. And even with humor, it's also knowing your audience. One group might think Squatty Potty's humor is funny, and then another group may be totally put off by it. It is just being yourself, being consistent in being yourself, just owning that.
I have a question regarding using longer GIFs and videos within emails. Do you have any advice on how we're able to use those longer formatted videos without making the email be extremely heavy and affecting deliverability and best practices around that?
I say don't do that. Do you expect a customer to watch a 10-second long GIF? Do they love that GIF so much that they're going to spend that time of their day? Like, I see tons of brands doing awesome stuff with just like 3 frames as a GIF. Trying to keep that GIF under 1 megabyte also helps, like with load time and stuff. If you really have a good message that you want, I think people are willing to bounce out to a YouTube video or a hosted video someplace. So I would be wary about including such a long form of content like that. I think there's cool ways to preview it, maybe a 10-second preview with a play button that bounces them off to something else. But in my opinion, more than 5 seconds even is just too long for a GIF. They're not going to watch the whole thing. It's going to take away from the overall message, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually am just thinking of an email I just got the other day from Crumble Cookies, which is currently one of my most opened emails. And I thought it was really clever. They actually, instead of showing them like frosting the whole cookie and the whole experience, it was just like a couple quick snapshots of the progress. So there's ways to shorten it up if you think about it creatively too.
A quick question about dark mode. Is there anything that you should be thinking at all times when you're doing dark mode stuff?
One quick win is using transparent PNGs for logos. I think there's like ways to do that easily that makes it pretty easy when that switch happens. I think just testing your emails on different platforms like Email and Acid and Litmus or your own device and seeing how your email reacts to dark mode. I know Plug, like Be Free, has a dark mode preview, so if you're designing your email, it also lets you maybe set specific styles or think about dark mode. But again, I think people are sometimes forcing a non-dark mode experience. I'd find it more interesting for brands that actually take the time to think about that within their design system and have a dark mode preference. These users are opting into that preference and just saying, oh, it doesn't match our brand guidelines. We want to look for it to look this specific way. And to me, I don't like that. So.
Yeah, and there's also so many different systems and platforms handle it differently in terms of your recipients. Be thoughtful about which systems and platforms your audience actually is on too, and don't focus on trying to hack dark mode for something you don't really need to worry about, or for one person.
Okay, I have a question for AI for email design. Aside from using ChatGPT to upload an image of the email, what other AI platforms would you recommend for design suggestions?
I haven't really experimented too much with other language models as much, but I guess just seeing the differences between some of those, giving it a little bit more prompts about like understanding what's important to you or what the goal you're trying to do, you may get better results depending on whatever different model can maybe help.
When you were talking about simply going from Figma, slicing up images only, guilty, is it better then to simplify the overlook and feels? We'll have an email and it's got a really nice gradient background to it, but then that doesn't transfer over in the same way that we would want it to. So we want it to be visually engaging, but then we're also losing those moments of accessibility. Finding the balance there, are there any suggestions you have?
I think, like you said, it's finding the balance. It's hard to live in extremes when it comes to email marketing of something that's all image or all text-based. So you definitely want to include things like brand fonts, brand colors that may not translate to a well-coded email, but just finding more opportunities of we're going to use a big image with all our brand fonts, and then that under the copy underneath it might be live text, and that button might be live text. I think you can still be creative while trying to think about some accessibility as well. So that's my opinion.
I had a question, wanted to get your thoughts on if there's any industry best practices or overall philosophies around resending emails to non-openers and what the efficacy and true incrementality of that would be.
I know that's gotten a lot harder since Apple did their little thing that we all appreciate so much. I would say it really depends on what you're trying to send and what you're trying to get across. One of the things that I always love saying is that not even your mom reads all of your emails, so you can totally get away with recycling something. But I think in the larger picture, if those folks aren't engaging in general, that's the question you really need to look at and see, do we need to slow down the pace of what we're sending them? Do we need to send them something entirely different? That kind of thing. I'm all about a recycling program if it eases your day a bit.
Yeah, I know for me, a webinar, sending a last chance email to non-engagers definitely performs really well. We see a big uptick and things like that. I think you just have to think about what the type of campaign, and then you can change your subject line when you do that resend, maybe some of the content as well, but people don't open every one of your emails like you hope that they do.
And I'm getting these low-key signals that I think it's time for us to make space for the next session. If you have more questions, Matt and I will be around. We're definitely interested in chatting more.